No one in Ashwood ever questioned why a flower shop sat at the edge of the city, on a quiet street where no one ever lingered. Its owner, Dominic Kane, was a man who had once ruled the underworld with an iron fist. His empire, built on loyalty, fear, and blood, had crumbled overnight, betrayed by the one person he had trusted most. Now, Dominic hid behind the delicate scent of roses, lilies, and orchids. The petals masked the scars on his hands, the darkness in his eyes, and the weight of vengeance he carried like a second skin. He never smiled. He never joked. He barely spoke. Yet everyone in Ashwood whispered about the Forest King, the man who once commanded respect and terror in equal measure. Then she arrived. Clara Bennett was quiet, unassuming, with hands that could coax life from even the most stubborn stems. She had a patience that was almost unnatural in its serenity, a gentleness that made even Dominic's steel-hard heart ache in ways he refused to acknowledge. From the first day she worked in the shop, the air shifted. Customers who had felt the weight of Dominic's presence now left with smiles, enchanted by the way Clara arranged flowers with a delicate artistry, or how she listened, really listened, to their troubles. Dominic watched her from the shadows of the back room, where the shop smelled of fresh earth and cut roses. He did not understand why he cared when she laughed. He did not understand why her quiet presence made the world outside seem less cruel. And then, one night, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, the truth landed like a dagger. Clara Bennett, the woman who had softened his nights and haunted his thoughts, was the daughter of Marcus Bennett. The same Marcus Bennett who had betrayed Dominic, who had orchestrated the fall of his empire and left him with nothing but ashes and a lingering hunger for revenge. Dominic's hands trembled as he held the bouquet she had just finished arranging. His mind warred with itself. Love, vengeance, desire, hatred, all tangled together like the vines of the roses she so carefully tended. "You work for the daughter of my enemy," he said, his voice low, a growl that made the shop's walls vibrate. Clara turned, startled, but met his gaze with a calm that enraged and mesmerized him in equal measure. "I work for no one but myself," she said softly. "And yet, I feel like I've been waiting to meet you my whole life." The confession was dangerous, reckless, and Dominic knew it. But in that moment, something shifted, something that neither betrayal nor blood could undo. As the nights passed, Dominic found himself confiding in her. He spoke of loss, of blood debts, of enemies who still lurked in the shadows. She listened. She never judged. She offered kindness where the world had offered only cruelty. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to rebuild the man who had once ruled empires. But love, Dominic soon realized, is a dangerous game when the enemy is so close. Clara was the key to everything he had lost, and perhaps the reason he could regain it all. He would have to choose revenge or redemption. And whichever path he chose, the world would never be the same again. Dominic Kane didn't just live in shadows, he thrived in them. Every alley in Ashwood whispered his name. Every transaction, every silence carried his legacy. But Clara had a way of making even the darkest corners feel exposed. It was late one evening. The shop was empty, the city outside a muted hum, when she approached him with a single, perfect bloom, a black orchid, rare and untamed. "I thought it might suit you," she said, her voice calm but her eyes searching, as if she knew the storm she was about to awaken. Dominic took the flower, his fingers brushing hers, and felt the pull of everything he had tried to bury. "You know who your father is," he said. The words were sharp, like a whip across his chest. "Do you understand what that means?" Clara didn't flinch. "I know, and I can't change that. But I can't help feeling there's more to you than what he made you into." Her defiance, her sincerity, it was maddening. Dominic wanted to pull her close and push her away at the same time. His life had been built on rules, loyalty, fear, control. She had none of that. She was chaos. She was light, and she was dangerous, because love and vengeance don't coexist. The next day, Dominic's world fractured further. Marcus Bennett had arrived in Ashwood, claiming a business proposal, but Dominic knew better. His enemy had come to finish what he had started, to remind Dominic of his losses and, perhaps, to take Clara from him. Dominic met Marcus in the back alley behind the shop. Rain had begun to fall, soft, almost poetic, but Dominic barely noticed. His voice was ice. "You betrayed me once," Dominic said, his eyes locked on Marcus. "And now you bring your daughter into my life, hoping I'll crumble again?" Marcus smirked. "She's my daughter, Dominic. And like me, she's clever. She knows what she wants and she knows how to get it." Dominic's hand went to the black orchid Clara had given him the night before. He imagined her face, her fearless eyes, and suddenly the thought of losing her became unbearable. When he returned to the shop, Clara was arranging flowers by the window, unaware of the storm outside. He knelt beside her and whispered, almost to himself, "I can protect you from him, but I can't protect you from me." Clara looked up, her calm unwavering, her hand reaching for his. "Then let me face it with you," she said. It was a choice. One that would determine whether Dominic's empire rose again, or fell into ashes forever. Because in the game of shadows, love is the ultimate gamble, and the heart, Dominic realized, is always the first battlefield. The city of Ashwood had learned to fear Dominic Kane, but now it was clear he feared something else. Losing Clara, the nights grew longer, heavier. Dominic's enemies, sensing weakness, began testing the boundaries of his patience. Anonymous threats appeared at the flower shop. A broken window one night, a shadow in the alley another. Every time, Dominic's instincts kicked in. Strike first, ask questions later. But Clara, she made him hesitate. She was no stranger to danger, but the quiet resilience in her eyes made Dominic realize something he had never admitted. He had been living for vengeance, but he could live for love too. It all came to a head the night Marcus Bennett arrived at the shop himself, unannounced, smirking like a predator. "Dominic Kane," he said, his voice smooth as silk but sharp as a blade. "You've hidden behind flowers for too long. It's time to pay for your losses." Dominic stepped in front of Clara, his coat brushing against hers, a silent promise. "She's not yours to use." Marcus laughed, low and cruel. "She's my daughter. And you're still the man who let everything slip through his fingers." Dominic's hand went to the gun tucked beneath his coat. The black orchid Clara had given him lay on the counter, delicate and defiant. He picked it up, twirling it in his hand. It felt like fate had placed it there, as if the beauty she gave him was a shield, a weapon, and a warning all at once. "Leave, Marcus," Dominic growled. "Or this flower won't be the only thing that gets crushed tonight." Marcus' smirk faltered, just a fraction, but it was enough. The tension was electric, a storm about to break. Clara stepped forward, fearless. "Stop this," she said. "All of it. You've both hurt enough people. This ends tonight, or it ends with all of us in the ground." Her words hung in the air like a verdict. Dominic looked at her, and in that instant, he saw what he had been fighting for, not power, not revenge, not even fear. He saw hope, then Marcus lunged. Dominic moved faster than he ever had before. In the blur of motion, punches were thrown. Glass shattered, and the black orchid fell. Petals scattered across the floor like blood. But Dominic protected Clara, his fury burning hotter than any loss he had ever endured. When the fight ended, Marcus was gone, slipping into the shadows with a warning glint in his eyes. Dominic turned to Clara, pulling her close, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to breathe without anger, without grief. "You should never have come here," he whispered, "and you should never hide behind walls," she replied, her lips brushing his in a fleeting, dangerous kiss. For Dominic Kane, the Florist King, the battle was far from over. But for the first time, he realized that some empires are rebuilt not with fear, but with love, and sometimes the hardest hearts can bloom again. The city never slept, but tonight, Ashwood seemed to hold its breath. Dominic Kane stood in the back of the flower shop, the faint glow of streetlights casting long shadows across the walls lined with roses and lilies. Clara was arranging orchids at the counter, her focus unwavering, her calm defiance like a beacon in the darkness. But Dominic knew the storm was coming. Marcus Bennett was smarter, crueler, and far from finished. A message arrived on Dominic's encrypted phone. "You have 24 hours. Choose wisely, Kane." He crumpled it and stared at the black orchid she had given him, the same flower that had survived their last confrontation, petals intact, unyielding. He realized then that Clara wasn't just a symbol of hope, she was a challenge. She had changed the rules of his life, and he would not fail. "Dominic," Clara said softly, walking toward him, "I don't care who he is. We can face him together." Dominic's hands trembled, not with fear, but with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. "If I fail if he gets to you, you won't," she interrupted, gripping his arm. "Not if we fight together. Not if you let me in." The next evening, Ashwood became a battlefield cloaked in shadows. Dominic, armed with every advantage he had rebuilt in secret, intercepted Marcus before he could strike the shop. Their confrontation was brutal, a war of strength and wits. Marcus taunted him, reminding him of every loss, every betrayal. But Dominic had changed. Clara had softened the edges of his vengeance, giving him clarity, giving him purpose beyond hate. He fought not just for revenge, but to protect the one person who had reminded him what it meant to feel alive. When the final blow came, Dominic stood over Marcus, a mixture of triumph and mercy in his eyes. He could end it. He could finish the man who had destroyed his life. But Clara's voice echoed in his mind. "Some empires are built on love, not fear." Dominic dropped the gun. Marcus, breathing heavily, fled into the night, humiliated but alive. Dominic turned to Clara, the storm of emotions in his chest threatening to spill over. "You saved me," he whispered, pulling her close. "No," she replied, tilting her head, brushing a hand against his cheek. "You saved yourself." For the first time in years, Dominic allowed himself to smile. The Florist King, once a man of blood and shadows, was finally free. Free to love. Free to rebuild. Free to embrace the life that waited quietly among petals and thorns. And as the city slept outside, the flower shop glowed, warm, inviting, and alive, a testament to the truth Dominic had learned. Even the hardest hearts can bloom in the shadows. The flower shop had never felt more alive. The scent of lilies and roses filled every corner, mingling with the quiet hum of the city outside. Dominic Kane watched Clara as she moved gracefully among the blooms, her hands coaxing life and beauty from every petal. He should have felt calm. He should have allowed himself a moment of peace. But Marcus Bennett was still out there, and Dominic knew better than anyone that Marcus did not forgive. That night, the warning came. A single black rose was left at the shop's entrance, a symbol Dominic recognized immediately. He didn't need to read the note tucked inside. "You cannot hide from me or from destiny." Dominic clenched his fists, feeling the familiar burn of anger. But Clara stepped forward, her hand resting on his arm. "Dominic," she said softly, her eyes steady, "we've survived everything else. We survived this together." He looked at her, the woman who had softened his steel, the one who had awakened something he thought was dead, and for the first time, he felt a determination stronger than revenge. He would protect her, no matter the cost. The confrontation came at the old docks, under the cold glare of moonlight. Marcus was waiting, flanked by men Dominic had thought loyal to him once, now turned. The fight was brutal, a symphony of anger, desperation, and skill honed over years of surviving betrayal. But Dominic had Clara in his heart. Every strike, every move was precise. Every thought was anchored by the reason he had chosen to live differently. Not for power, not for fear, but for love. When Marcus lunged for a final strike, Dominic caught him off guard, holding him at gunpoint. But instead of ending him, he let Marcus fall to the ground, defeated, humiliated, and powerless. "You could kill me," Marcus spat, venom in every word. Dominic shook his head. "I could, but I won't. Not anymore. This ends with me choosing a life worth living." Clara ran into his arms, her tears mingling with the cold night air. "You did it," she whispered. "No," Dominic said, his forehead resting against hers. "We did it. As dawn broke over Ashwood, the city seemed to breathe a little easier. The flower shop, once a cover for a fallen empire, now stood as a sanctuary of love, redemption, and new beginnings. Dominic Kane had faced his past, conquered vengeance, and discovered that even the hardest heart could bloom when given a reason to, and as Clara smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from his face, Dominic realized that some empires weren't built on fear or power. They were built on trust, hope, and the courage to love. The Florist King had fallen once. Now, he had risen, stronger, not as a king of shadows, but as a man reborn in the light of love. Ashwood was waking, but the city's streets still held the remnants of a night that had changed everything. Dominic Kane stood at the flower shop's doorway, the first rays of sunlight illuminating his face, hardened by the past, softened by love. Clara emerged from inside, carrying a bouquet of freshly picked roses. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pride, relief, and something deeper, love. "Are we really free?" she asked softly. Dominic took her hands in his, the weight of his past finally lifting from his shoulders. "We are," he said, his voice steady. "As long as we face it together, nothing can touch us again. But freedom rarely comes without a test." From the shadows, Marcus Bennett had returned for one last attempt, not just to reclaim his power, but to shatter the bond Dominic had built. He cornered them at the edge of the city, his presence a looming threat. "You think you can escape me?" Marcus sneered, stepping closer, his men forming a wall around him. Dominic stepped forward, placing Clara behind him. "No," he said. "I don't escape. I end this." The final confrontation was swift and merciless. Dominic's skill, honed by years of survival and sharpened by the need to protect Clara, overwhelmed Marcus. One by one, his men fell, fleeing into the night. Marcus, the man who had taken everything from Dominic once, now faced him alone. "You should have killed me before," Marcus hissed. Dominic shook his head. "I've learned that power, without purpose, is meaningless. I don't want your empire. I want my life back. And I want her." With that, Marcus was forced to retreat, humiliated and powerless, leaving Dominic and Clara standing together as the sun broke fully over Ashwood. For the first time, Dominic didn't feel the need to hide. The flower shop, once a mask for a fallen king, had become a symbol of rebirth. Its delicate blooms mirrored the transformation within him, tender, alive, and thriving. Clara stepped closer, placing her hands on his chest. "You saved more than yourself, Dominic Kane," she whispered. He smiled, a rare, genuine smile, one that no enemy, no betrayal, could erase. "No," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We saved each other." And so, the Florist King's empire was reborn, not through fear, blood, or vengeance, but through love, trust, and the courage to open his heart. Dominic Kane had lost everything once, but in the arms of the woman who saw past his shadows, he had gained it all. The flower shop thrived. The city whispered stories of the man who had fallen and risen again. And somewhere between petals and promises, Dominic and Clara discovered a truth stronger than any empire. Some hearts are meant to bloom, even in the darkest of shadows. Thanks for watching, and welcome to Mafia Hearts. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more thrilling tales of love, betrayal, and power. We want to hear from you. Tell us which character or moment kept you on the edge of your seat. Stay tuned, because the next story will be even more intense.